talking points memo. This was a pretty expansive reporting job here. They used multiple sources. They obtained hundreds of text messages from former chief of staff under Trump, Mark Meadows, and dozens of Republican members of Congress. They include Representative-elect at the time, Marjorie Taylor Greene, but also Senator Ted Cruz, Mo Brooks, Jim Jordan, the regular folks, the usual suspects, as
also
you might call them.
Also a bunch of nerds, a bunch of New York Republican sort of fascist wannabe nerds.
That too. And why I think this is instructive is one, I mean, we're going to see more of these messages because they were turned over to the January 6th committee, but Talking Points memo was able to get a lot of them. And they span from before January 6th to after January 6th to during January 6th. And it's a window into the mind of the Republican representative, which is not too dissimilar from the crazy activists on the ground on the right, or the MAGA folks who I think sometimes people in our press try to draw a line between that, you know, the people in power, they don't necessarily want to cave to the MAGA voters, to the Trump crazies, but with politics, baby, you just see that there really is very little distinction. They believe the same kind of stuff. Here's Representative Ralph Norman of South Carolina. This was a text that he sent on January 17th, 3 days before the inauguration, multiple days after January 6th, after people saw what happened, saying, quote, "Mark, in seeing what's happening so quickly and reading about the Dominion lawsuits attempting to stop any meaningful investigation, we are at a point of no return." Looks like he used 2 emojis there.
Yeah, I wonder what emojis he used.
I'm guessing the red exclamation points or a siren.
Yeah.
We could put some money on that. In saving our republic, our last hope is invoking martial law. Please urge the president to do so, in all caps. Asking the chief of staff to declare martial law. Obviously,
like Marshall Mathers.
Marshall, yeah,
2 L's.
Well, I mean, I think in my notes I wrote it down like that, so I mean, I'll forgive him for that. But like, that's a coup. You're saying I want a coup. Please do it now. Yeah, and that's after January 6th, when I think that
days after.
You even had Kevin McCarthy afterwards being like, whoa, this is too much. Mitch McConnell was in a standoff with the Trump administration as well. There were elected Republicans who were freaked out about it, but then the dust settled and they were still going to be a bit cynical and use it for their own electoral purposes. That was, I would say, the bulk of Republicans in the House and the Senate. But there's a still sizable chunk that was like, no, January 6th was right. This was what should have happened, and we need you to go further and lock this thing down, declare martial law, and ensure that the coup actually happened. That's from Representative Ralph Norman of South Carolina. Here is Texas Representative Brian Babin writing to Mark Meadows after the 2020 election. This was on November 6th, saying, "Mark, when we lose Trump, we lose our republic. Fight like hell and find a way. We're with you down here in Texas and refuse to live under a corrupt Marxist dictatorship. Liberty, Babin."
Liberty.
It's so funny, like, you hear all the people that, you know, they make an entire cottage industry about liberal overreaction to, like, the Trump administration and hyperbole. Mm-hmm. And you have actual Congress people that are every bit as sort of, like, out there and lunatic as, like, the craziest person you get on MSNBC.
I mean, much more so. Like, They wanted a corrupt Marxist dictatorship. Imagine genuinely believing that about the Biden administration. Biden administration.
Just, A corrupt Marxist dictatorship would do a little bit more for rail workers, I think.
Perhaps. Might even, like, broach the subject of some sort of single payer option or universal health care. Biden, we're not even touching that.
Yeah.
None of that. It would be very cool if that were the case, but that's not the case. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, then just a representative-elect, sticking her mouth in Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's mailboxes, and that's not a euphemism, just actually doing that.
That is accountability. Like to hold our representatives to account to the people.
Yeah, that's what she was doing in her lead up to being an elected representative. This is her speaking at a Republicans gala here in New York the other day. This echoes a lot of the text messages that she was sending to Mark Meadows here. But speaking about January 6th, just another piece of evidence that for a lot of this group of Republicans, January 6th did not go far enough because it did not finish the job.
I come to Washington, I swear in on January 3rd, I get accused of giving insurrection tours, which I thought was hilarious because I couldn't even find the bathroom in the Capitol. True story. Then January 6th happens, and next thing you know, I organized the whole thing along with Steve Bannon here. And I want to tell you something, if Steve Bannon and I had organized that, we would have won.
Damn. Shot at the Proud Boys.
It would have been armed. Yeah.
Imagine Ilhan Omar
That's the
said
whole
that.
joke, isn't it? They say that whole thing was planned, and I'm like, are you kidding me? A bunch of conservative Second Amendment supporters went in the Capitol without guns, and they think that we organized that? I don't think so.
There were guns found on people.
Yeah. We are in the middle of the second seditious conspiracy case against the Oath Keepers. The Oath Keepers were storing AR-15s, boxes of ammunition. We also saw that there were bombs planted throughout and bomb threats made throughout Washington, D.C. on that day. So that's just revisionist history. She's also trying to claim that it was not planned. We know that there were reconnaissance efforts mapping out the Capitol building so that they would be able to more effectively infiltrate it. But that's her problem with it, was that it was not coordinated well enough. Because if she and Steve Bannon were at the forefront, they would have brought guns. So here we have it. We have martial law should be declared 3 days before Biden is inaugurated. We have right after the election essentially saying that it needs to be stopped because it's a corrupt Marxist dictatorship. And then we have Marjorie Taylor Greene, celebutante for the Republican Party, saying there, we should have had guns. That's the thing that was the problem with it. It wasn't planned well enough. And they are just a part of the dozens of lawmakers, people in power, who were speaking with Mark Meadows at this time, attempting to coordinate a coup. This is what this looks like. And it's not histrionic to point that out. It's just the facts.
And this shit isn't theoretical, in the sense that clearly, I just mean in the sense that this stuff was not teasing, overturning the election results and inciting a riot. This goes even further up than backbenchers like Babin and Norman, and then also celebrity representatives like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Mike Pence was trying to figure out whether he could do this or not. Yeah. He wasn't consulting solemnly with Dan Quayle and Luddig, that conservative lawyer, about his options to make sure he couldn't do it. He was trying to see if there was a legal precedent for it, so he could do it potentially to satisfy his boss. Jeffrey Clark in the Department of Justice, if Jeffrey Rosen, the acting attorney general at that time, was more of a dumbass, he would have basically allowed this to happen, and Jeffrey Clark probably would have either declared martial law or accepted or ordered Congress or something to either seize voting machines or accept alternate slates of electors. There were many near misses and sliding doors moments that this shit just would have actually happened if certain people were a little bit more credulous, or if Mike Pence was spineless enough to just go through with it regardless of any sort of penchant for my own honor I solemnly having to do this. Like,
you're right that he was attempting to find a way to actually make it happen, and then there was just not the necessary support for him to make it happen on the day of January 6th. And there's people chanting, hang him, and then it all falls apart from there. But if they had a legal avenue, they would have done it. And like, this isn't a window into the desperation that was shared on that side.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, while we're all having to faff about with whether Trump should have been suspended after January 6th and whether that was a big sort of attack on civil liberties, I would just say I like to see Trump in jail for January 6th, and a lot of these supporters too. I think like there's like this like sort of faux libertarian critique of the FBI thing or whatever that comes up. But if this was like a Latin American country, it'd be very clear what to support as far as like the state cracking down on right-wing coup supporters. And I think we should do that in America. And I think more people should have been locked up for January 6th, particularly at the top. And I would like to see more against Marjorie Taylor Greene to the extent that she continues to engage in this sort of thing. The Democrats should play some sort of hardball.
Well, and it's a great point, because who are we seeing actually face consequences for January 6th? I mean, Trump got impeached, but did that affect anything with him? No. Yeah. No one in power is really facing any serious consequences for that. I mean, the Meadows interacting with some of these people and potentially Roger Stone being a go-between with some of these militia groups, we'll see how that unfolds. But from where we stand right now, the people that are bearing the brunt of the state and who are being prosecuted and who are being jailed, they're right-wing extremists for sure. But it's another example of people in kind of the middle pack of the country who are going to be the ones who get prosecuted, go to prison for this, when it should be people at the top. Marjorie Taylor Greene should not be in office. None of these representatives should be allowed to hold elected office because they tried to overturn the government.
I mean, Ron Johnson and all those
Ralph
people,
Norman,
there should be a massive investigation into the whole fraudulent electors thing, and people should be going to jail for that. That is what jails should be for. Like, we should, I think, like, go very far towards abolishing, like, the way police and the way they operate inside communities. But I am for having a carceral system for people who do crimes against democracy like this. And, like, we need to... It does need to be taken seriously, and that's why I've never been one of these people that is sort of like ho-hum about January 6th. Yeah, I don't trust the institutions that we are going to war with here, like the FBI and Congress. Like, they're going to F it up, and they're going to go attack it at angles that are unproductive and unhelpful, because it's like, you know, bourgeois liberals and like a sort of a psycho government agency. Nonetheless, the work needs to be done, and like to the extent that the public is aware of that, it should be supported.